Welcome to the channel and welcome to today's run through of all the latest Manchester United news and transfer updates, keeping you right up to date with everything. I'm Jamie. Before we get into it, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's jump straight into it. So let's kick off with this story that came out from a fairly decent Italian journalist, actually works for Gazzetta Italy, saying that Manchester United and Juventus have discussed three players during recent talk held this week. Douglas Luiz, Dusan Vlahovic, and Jadon Sancho. Now that's really interesting. I'm going to go through the Jadon Sancho stuff in a second because there are loads of reports linking Sancho with a move to Serie A with Napoli and Juventus. We know that Douglas Luiz has been reportedly of interest of United from Fabrizio Romano. Even there were rumours of a swap deal involving potentially Højlund, maybe Sancho, some kind of deal involving them. And the noise around Dusan Vlahovic is starting to get a little bit louder over the last couple of days as well, with reports that he's being offered to clubs and is not signing it or not going to be getting a new deal with Juventus, or they're struggling to come to terms with a new deal. And he is in the last 12 months of his contract as well. What do we think about that? Some sort of triple deal where they buy Sancho and then we potentially go for Douglas Luiz and Dusan Vlahovic. I wouldn't necessarily be against that, in fairness. Two good players that would strengthen us, and we obviously remove Jadon Sancho. So that's not a bad series of events that might happen regarding Juventus. But give us your thoughts on that. We'll run through the rest of the Vlahovic news. So because as I mentioned, there's been quite a few murmurings over the last few days regarding his situation. So Manchester United will have to decide whether they are prepared to make Dusan Vlahovic one of the highest earners at Old Trafford when the Juventus star is pushed their direction, as he is seeking a lucrative contract as he prepares to embark on a fresh challenge. Vlahovic has made £200,000 per week contract demands to join Manchester United or a Premier League counterpart this summer, according to Gibby Sports sources, having decided that he wants to secure a significant payday elsewhere after Serie A heavyweights Juventus failed to convince him to sign a new long-term deal. Although the Serbian international is prepared to take a pay cut in order to leave his current surroundings, having been on a contract worth more than £315,000 a week at Juventus, he has made it clear that he will still hold out for a big money pay package if the Red Devils or a domestic rival ups the ante. Now, that came from Danny Rust and Dean Jones, both decent sources. Not the first time they've actually done a report linking Vlahovic to United. The reports are, the situation with Vlahovic, I think, is that he's not going to be signing a new contract at Juventus. So his agent is going to be offering him around or speaking to clubs around Europe, trying to secure a move away. According to the reports, he's willing to take a pay cut from his £315,000 a week salary down to £200,000 a week, which is about what Ineos are looking to do for their new wage structure. I think Cunha's going to be around that, and Mbeumo, update on him in a second, we're going to run through, is looking to be a little bit less than that. And that seems to be the golden number, around 200,000 for Ineos and us wanting to reduce our wage strategy. So it does fit within that. What do we think about Vlahovic, though? I've got loads of red flags regarding Vlahovic personally. He is a good striker, though. I don't want to dismiss the fact that he is a good striker. He's, in the last year of his contract, there are some reports that he might be available for around 20 million as well, which is less than Delap. So fits within the original budget that we were looking for. 25-year-old is an improvement. I have red flags, though, about his, lifestyle, his personality as well. I think he's done some reports around his work rate, not wanting to work hard, and is a bit of a playboy as well. But, he's 25. He might have matured. He might be ready to hit his peak and hit his prime, having gone through those mischief years, as some players do when they're in their late teens, early 20s. So maybe he is a bit in a position to mature. Who knows? But I personally have some red flags. But other than that, he is a good striker and he would be an upgrade on the team. It's just, is he what we're looking for? But then we might be in a position where he becomes a viable option, because if Gyökeres waits for Arsenal and Arsenal move for Gyökeres, There's reports that Juventus might be going for Jackson as a replacement for Vlahovic, and then Chelsea then might be going for Ekitike. There's this whole merry-go-round when it comes to striker targets, so Vlahovic might become a viable option if we are looking to strengthen that area. So, but give us your thoughts and your shouts on Vlahovic in the comments below, and on the original story around that we've been discussing 3 players this week with Juventus, Douglas Luiz, Vlahovic, and Sancho. We'll run through the Sancho news next, but give us your thoughts on all of that in the comments. Be interesting to hear what you think about that. So let's go through the Sancho stuff. So Juventus have explored the conditions of a deal for Jadon Sancho. They will formally approach Manchester United, and they believe a move is realistic, and they are in touch with Sancho's representatives over personal terms. And that came from Sky Sports Seth, good source. Juventus have initiated initial contacts and inquired about Jadon Sancho's situation. Napoli already have an agreement with Sancho, but not with Manchester United. Sancho is willing to reduce his salary to return to playing. Now, that came from another Italian journalist. Di Marzio, though, was saying that Napoli have some sort of agreement with Jadon Sancho. He is giving them priority over Juventus. And Fabrizio Romano has come out saying that Napoli does not want to cover Jadon Sancho's salary, whether on loan or transfer. The transfer fee would not be a problem for Napoli, but the salary is too high. So at the moment, the reports coming out from decent sources and Fabrizio Romano is that Napoli in conversations or looking at Jadon Sancho, they're prepared to pay the transfer fee for him, but not his salary. Jadon Sancho is prioritising Napoli because he seems to have some sort of, or be in contact with them. If he can agree terms on a salary, then potentially Juventus would do a permanent deal. If they don't, maybe they're going to hold out for a loan. In the meantime, the other reports are suggesting that Juventus might be entering the race as well. Now, remember, Juventus were very interested in Jadon Sancho last year, but couldn't get a deal done. Whether they would be able to offer more in wages and then get the deal done, whether Sancho would want to go, who knows? But it's really interesting that we've got a couple of decent outlets and reports and movement potentially around Jadon Sancho leaving, hopefully on a permanent deal. I can't be done with another saga and another loan where we're, talking about Sancho and potentially coming back, unless this is an obligation to buy, and it doesn't include this stupid exit clause like we did with Chelsea. But who knows? So, but it's interesting that we've got a couple of Italian teams looking at him, Napoli and Juventus. I think Juventus would probably pay, if they're paying Vlahovic £315,000 a week and he's about to leave, that gives them wiggle room in their budget to maybe offer more than Napoli are. But Napoli are ahead in the negotiations. So it's a bit of a game at the moment, but we need to see how it plays out. But interesting that we've got I think it's positive that we are looking to, because getting rid of Sancho, Anthony, Rashford and Garnacho is going to be huge for us this summer and free up a lot of funds to go on and fund the rest of the transfer window. So the quicker we can get these deals done and the more interest we have in these players and bidding wars and players have options and choices of clubs, the better it is for us as well. But we'll need to wait and see how it all plays out. But give us your shouts on that in the comments below, as I'm sure that you will. So let's go for the Mbeumo news. So Manchester United are set to pay around £63 million plus add-ons for Bryan Mbeumo. Personal terms verbally agreed. Deal now hinges on final details with Brentford. Now that came from Rudy Galletti. Rudy Galletti, I would say, take with a pinch of salt. He can be decent, can be not decent as well. So I don't think the noise around Mbeumo and the contract and everything is necessarily going to come from Rudy Galletti, when Ben Jacobs, Romano, David Ornstein, these characters who I would say are tier one journalists ahead of Rudy Galletti are probably more in the know, I suspect, than Rudy Galletti. But it doesn't mean he's not wrong. It could be well sourced. It could come from an agent. Who knows? But £63 million plus add-ons for Bryan Mbeumo. I mean, they did want Cunha money, didn't they? They wanted Cunha money. The belief has always been that they want a big cash injection. I mean, that seems a little bit high. 63 plus add-ons. I was expecting 55 plus add-ons to get it to like that £63 million or 57 million with 5 million add-ons, or however they kind of work it out. But Brentford are sticking to their guns. I know technically he's in the last year of his contract, but they do have a +1 option as well. So hypothetically, from Brentford's perspective, he's still got 2 years left on his contract. So it's not as, from their perspective, they are in a bit of a better position because they could do the obligation or the +1 option on his contract. Be annoying. That would be annoying, actually, thinking about it, because the fact that we've waited 3 weeks to try and negotiate his price down and end up paying pretty much what Brentford wanted anyway. But that's typical United. We know we can't negotiate deals very well. It'll be less than the 70, I suppose, that what Brentford were asking for, but it's obviously a lot higher than what we were looking for. But we'll need to wait and see. I'm not going to get bent out of shape about that report, because it's not been backed up by anybody of credibility at this moment in time. It's just Rudy Galletti and Valentin Furlan, who are decent, but not the most credible in my opinion. So we'll wait and see. We'll hang fire and before getting too bent out of shape around fees and payments stuff, because we just don't know whether that's the reality yet, and we'll wait and see how it happens. The truth around the Mbeumo situation is there's not really been any news over the last couple of days, but give us your thoughts and your feelings on that in the comments below. Now, more of the noise over the last few days has been regarding the goalkeeper situation, which we're going to run through now. So, Monaco are looking for a goalkeeper, but they are not working on a deal for Andre Onana as of today. So that came out from Fabrizio Romano, which is interesting because the reports that I brought you the other day were saying that Monaco might be in the race for Onana, but according to Romano, they're not looking for a goalkeeper. Sorry, they are looking for a goalkeeper, but not working on a deal for Andre Onana as of today. So no negotiations or anything. He might be a player of interest to them, though. DiMarzio is saying that Monaco are interested in Andre Onana. Atlanta's Marco Carnesecchi is now among one of the targets of Manchester United to replace him. We'll go through his updates in a second. Paul Hurst from The Times, who's a good source, said that Monaco have approached Andre Onana's representatives over a potential move, but the goalkeeper is minded to stay and fight for his place at Manchester United. Monaco asked this camp to be kept updated on his situation. No formal bid has been made. So maybe that's what's happened. Maybe Monaco have reached out to Onana's agent, and that's where we're getting the stories of Monaco's interest. According to Romano, they're not in advanced negotiations or anything, but Paul Hurst in The Times saying that they just want to be kept informed in his situation as well. But interestingly, that he wants to stay at United. Jamie Jackson, who's a good source, said that he's pretty much the same thing as well, saying that Monaco has shortlisted Andre Onana as a potential summer signing, but he intends to stay at Manchester United to prove his worth to Ruben Amorim next season. So that sounds like a brief to me when you've got Paul Hurst from The Times and Jamie Jackson from The Guardian, who are decent sources, pretty much saying the same thing. That sounds like it's been briefed by somebody, whether it's Onana's agent, United, Monaco, who knows where the actual story came from. Nath Solt, though, interested, he said that Emi Martinez's camp have been working overtime to make it known he is eager to join Manchester United. There's been no approach from United, and all indications have been of Andre Onana staying and playing. So, yeah. So it seems like the goalkeeper situation. In fact, we'll run through the rest of the news, then I'll summarise it for you. So, Nico and Martinez has said that Manchester United have opened talks to try to sign Emi Martinez, who is ready to leave Aston Villa in the summer transfer window. And then the Muppeteers have said that Emi Martinez's agent is strongly pushing for a move to Manchester United, and Emi Martinez is not in a process to sign for Manchester United at the moment, despite his desire to join. It depends on Andre Onana, and that came from Fabrizio Romano. So I think the situation for the goalkeeper, reading between the lines, now we've had a few more reports and stories coming out, is that maybe Monaco and some Saudi clubs might be interested in Onana, but at the moment, Onana wants to stay. Emi Martinez, the situation there is that Emi Martinez, it seems like he is pushing, or his agent is pushing for a move to United, so it's coming more from Martinez's side than it is necessarily from Manchester United's side. However, he would maybe become an option if we do get an offer for Onana, and maybe we do look to move Onana on. So the whole situation is we're still in the position where we're looking for a cheaper, younger, up and coming goalkeeper as competition for Onana, rather than looking to sell Onana and bringing in a replacement. However, it's the transfer window. If they get an offer that's too good to be that's within what they want, the PSR amount from Onana, then maybe they would look to sell him, and that's when maybe somebody like Martinez becomes a more viable option. That's how I read the goalkeeper situation at the moment, that it seems that Martinez is being pushed by his agent, but and but we would have to wait and see if Onana goes before maybe we go for a number one. But at the moment, we're still, I think, in the running for like a backup, like a number two, younger profile of player, someone to compete with Onana and actually, potentially take over from him if he makes the same clangers next season that he did this season as well. But now one of those players might be Carnesecchi. So Atalanta goalkeeper Marco Carnesecchi is the goalkeeper Manchester United likes the most if Andre Onana leaves. Now, Di Marzio was at one point in time the most credible. He was the Romano of his day. Still very decent, though, when it comes to Italian reports. Not the most credible like a Romano and Ornstein, but he is a decent source, especially when it comes to Italian news. And then Tuta Meccano were also saying that Atalanta want £43 million for Marco Carnesecchi, but Manchester United haven't gone beyond £34 million just yet. So that Tuta Meccano suggested maybe we've made, I don't want to say a bid or an offer, but discussion around a fee. And we're wanting to pay about 34, yet Atalanta want 43. So that might be a viable option. I think it might be an expensive one, and we would need to rely on sales to do that. But maybe Carnesecchi, I think Carnesecchi, James Trafford, the stories around him have gone really quiet recently. I think Lemens is another one to keep an eye on. He's a goalkeeper that we've been linked with for a while by multiple decent sources as well. Savic, but there's reports Napoli might be going for Savic and are ahead of the game because we're not in a position where we can move on a goalkeeper yet. Chevrolet is another one. And then maybe Carnesecchi to add to that list as well of young goalkeepers that could come in as a backup to Onana. But give us your shouts on that in the comments below. It'll be interesting to hear what you've got to say regarding the keeper situation. Now, another player that we have been linked with, it was the other day, a couple of days ago, there was a report suggesting that Manchester United were still interested in Roger Fernandes. Now, Sean Connolly's come out. I like Sean Connolly. He's a decent source as well, saying that Manchester United retain significant interest in Roger Fernandes. Despite his age and inexperience at the highest level, Fernandes presents a flamboyant modern-day profile with a style and professional approach similar to Giovanni Kender. So that's an interesting one that we are... there's been a few more murmurings regarding Roger Fernandes. I like Roger Fernandes. I think he looks like a good profile to bring in as well. So I agree with what Sean Connolly said that as well. Not for necessarily the first team ready, but somebody that can come in, can play in multiple positions, could be a good wing-back option as well in the future. Young, developmental, all of that jazzle that we're looking for as well. Like, I like the idea of bringing in Roger Fernandes, but I don't think the wing-back position or strengthening that area is necessarily the priority at the moment, because we know we're working on Mbeumo. Then it sounds like we're going to pivot towards a striker, maybe midfielder, wing-back, goalkeeper. I think it depends on exits and bids that we get maybe for players that will need to move on in those areas, because we get a random bid for, Luke Shaw, for example, then maybe we need to go for a centre-half and use that money to go for a centre-half. So a lot of it will be like a sell-to-buy situation for the rest of the transfer window. But, we need to wait and see how it plays out. But give us your thoughts on Fernandes in the comments. I know some of you like him from previous videos, but give us your shouts on that below. Now let's keep with the exit news then. So this was a bit of a surprise, but also I would say take it with a pinch of salt. So United have reportedly tried to establish whether there is a market for Mason Mount this summer transfer window. The club's former chief scout Mick Brown has told Football Insider. Now I will say straight away, Football Insider are not the most credible source of information, so that's why I've said do take it with a pinch of salt. But I read this in the Manchester Evening News, where apparently United's former scout Mick Brown has told Football Insider the following: that Aston Villa have been spoken about, and I think they could make a move. People remember Mason Mount at his best, and that's what Aston Villa want to help him get back to, and it looks like he's back to full fitness now. His move to Manchester United hasn't been positive by any means, but he's still a talented player. Villa want to strengthen because they've lost Rashford and Asensio, so Mount is on their list. Unai Emery is a fan of his and feels he could help him to rediscover his Chelsea form. It would be an excellent move for Mount as well, because Villa are a top club and they've got top facilities and they'll be playing in Europe as well. So what do we think about that? So according to that report, or according to that United's former scout, United are maybe seeing if there's a market out there for Mason Mount, maybe making some inquiries, and that Aston Villa might be interested in Mason Mount. I mean, I could see it logically. Like, I could see how that would make sense for all around. It's a good move for Mount, so that statement I could agree with. Emery's got a reputation of getting players in and getting the best out of them as well. These kind of older established players that are not quite at their peak anymore, but reinvigorating their careers. So I could see Emery maybe wanting someone like Mason Mount. I think he would fit their profile as well. It's just, would they have the budget for his salary? That would be my question mark around Mount. But it brings up an interesting thought point, or a thinking point, because, Ruben Amorim loves Mason Mount. He said it in multiple interviews. But we're getting 2 number 10s ahead of Mason Mount, because you don't pay 60-odd million for Cunha and 60-odd million, according to today's news, for Mbeumo, and then put them on the bench, in my opinion. So I think they come into the first team, and he's wanting them in the first team. So then Mount's all of a sudden now a rotation option or a backup player, even though you love him. Is there movement there? So is this one of these that I mentioned before, where you get an offer for a player, and you're like, okay, that might be a bit too good to turn down. So you sell Mount, and then you need to bring in another backup attacker, and that was where maybe someone like Roger Fernandez would come in, because he can play in the attack, he can play at wing back as well. So do you pivot that way as well? Who knows? There's a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes regarding that, but I'd want to see a bit more credibility as well, being completely truthful with you, from Footy Insider. But it was in the Manchester Evening News, so I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. It was just a really quiet day though yesterday, being fair. Didn't do a video because I was like, there's just not really much going on, and I'm not going to sit here and record a video and edit and stuff when it's just a lot of it regurgitated news or making mountains out of molehills, because the reality is there wasn't much news yesterday. Loads overnight, and obviously the Mbeumo news, the Vlahovic news, the Juventus news, I think is quite interesting, but the rest is all pretty much the same of the same. But anyway, that's my opinion. I've had a bit of a rant. Give us your thoughts on Mason Mount's exit, though, or potential exit, in the comments. Let's go through the rest of the exit talk. So Napoli has already had contact with Rasmus Højlund's entourage and received positive responses. The valuation of 45 million euros isn't a problem due to their financial capacity to complete a permanent transfer deal, while Inter Milan are still pushing for a loan deal. So that came from another Italian outlet suggesting that Napoli might be in the race for Højlund, although Romano has said that Napoli are looking at Darwin Núñez, so that's one to keep an eye on. Maybe they would pivot to Højlund if they don't get Darwin Núñez's deal, because there's apparently reports interest from the Saudi Pro League and Núñez, so we need to wait and see how that plays out. But again, it's similar to Sancho. We get a few teams interested in our players, the better it is for us. But it's just, United need the 45 million euros, because that's his book value from PSR. And if you do want to sell him, then it needs, obviously we can't lose money on it, because it massively has an impact on PSR. But, we'll wait and see how that plays out. Italian side Como have tried to sign Antony in the recent days, but Brazilian winger is given priority to Real Betis' return. Man United are also have Antony's preference to continue at Betis next season. No club-to-club agreement yet, so that came from Fabrizio Romano. There's been another report suggesting that Como might be ready to make a 40 million euro bid for Antony, so we'll have to keep an eye on that one. And again, it's the same situation. The more teams we have bidding for our players, the better, but it's more positivity, I think, around that our team's interest, because I thought we'd struggle to sell players this summer because of the interest. Because to sell a player, you've got to have teams interested in them. That's the only way you can sell players. Like Luke Shaw, we would probably sell Luke Shaw, but who's interested? There's no team linked with a move for Luke Shaw at the moment. Mason Mount, there's been one report about Aston Villa, but I would question the credibility of that one, where it came from personally at the moment, and would want to hang fire and take it with a pinch of salt. So whereas Sancho's, we've got reports of interest from Italy, Højlund interest from Italy, Como now from Fabrizio Romano interested in Antony, and Real Betis as well. So it's encouraging, I think, that we're getting at least teams interested in our players. Monaco interested in Onana potentially. So this is all good. And then Sully, who's a good source, said that Real Betis have been in direct club-to-club contact with Manchester United in recent weeks for Antony. How Antony is willing to take a wage cut to facilitate a move. Personal terms are not an issue. Separation on fee currently. So Sully's, I think he's been really, really decent recently. Kind of summarising it up, saying, look, Betis are still Antony's preferred destination. He's happy to take a pay cut to go there, but are they going to be willing to pay the fee that United want? That's where the stumbling block is. There's talk of this 50% ownership shenanigans. I don't know the details around that. But if Como come in with an offer, could they change Antony's mind? They've obviously got the financial backing as well. Who knows? But that's good. The bidding war for Antony would be good because it helps us with the rest of our transfer window. The more money we can get for the exits as well as removing them. Because I'd be shocked if we do sell Antony and Sancho permanently, because I thought who'd have thought that I thought these two would be the hardest players to shift on. But, Antony's obviously gone away on loan, done really well, increased his value. Sancho, not so much, but there's obviously interest in Sancho as well. So fair play to them. And then the final player is Rashford. So Marcus Rashford camp confirms recent talks with Barca. Despite the potential arrival of Nico Williams, the club is considering him as a market opportunity. He's eager to join and willing to wait. That came from some decent sources for Barcelona, suggesting that the recent talks with Barca, and they still might be going for Rashford, even though they might be getting Nico Williams. The Musketeers said that Marcus Rashford wants to move to Barcelona, but if they don't go for him soon, he is not going to turn down offers from other big clubs that are in Champions League, like Inter and other big clubs that are interested in him. And Rob Dawson from ESPN said there has been interest from Barca, Inter Milan, Juventus and Bayern Munich, as well as several Premier League clubs for Rashford, but United are yet to receive a firm bid. And Paul Hurst said that Marcus Rashford is awaiting clarity from Barcelona on whether they still hold interest in him following their move to sign Nico Williams. Inter Milan, Juventus and Bayern Munich have also been linked with the Manchester United forward. So there's more news, or more teams now being linked with Marcus Rashford, which again is good. Goes back to exactly what I'm saying. The more teams we have interested in the players that we want to sell, the better it is for us, because that creates a bidding war, and and that only helps us going forward from a PSR perspective as well. So I'm encouraged, at least now, by the early reporting of players leaving. We need to see it happen, though. That's the big tell for me this transfer window, is can we be ruthless enough to sell the players that would have otherwise stayed and ran their contracts down at United? So that's a big step in the right direction for me if we can actually sell these players. So we'll keep an eye on it for you. Give us your thoughts on that in the comments below. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with the latest news and transfer news. Don't forget, smash a like on the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. See you in the next one.